Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, and welcome back to Soul Archaeology. And wow, what a week. What a time to be alive. I had sort of sensed that this would be the case, but the energy really started accelerating when Neptune entered Aries on January 26th. The Mars-Pluto conjunction really was a fire or a match that was lit, and we just keep moving from one wave to the next. And I know 2026 will feel like this in a lot of ways as we build towards this 2027 threshold, which is so fast, so many things breaking open, building new. I think 2026 in many ways is a year of new beginnings, but it's also a lot of things dying at the same time. We know that, and we know that's always the case, that death and birth come together. We've had a major wave of awakening come in. And I've been talking about this for a long time, so if you've heard it before, I apologize. You have to keep hearing it, but we're in a time of accelerated change and evolution, and these waves of awakening can feel so abrupt and so confronting. It can feel like they totally wipe you out or take you out and take you down. And that's kind of the intention. I shouldn't say that's the intention. That's how it's designed. They're designed as ego deaths. And when we awaken to something that was previously unavailable to us or hidden, it can be quite jarring. And every single person is different. We all are wired differently. We come to this life with different lived experiences from past lives, of course, and then earlier in our lifetime, in our childhoods. So we're not all going to be impacted in the same way. We're not always going to have the same response as everyone else. And that's okay. A lot of what has come to the surface over the last week and a half has been information that I've known about for years. And I had my awakening around it in 2020, and it was incredibly jarring for me. I had a massive ego death related to that. I felt like I was mourning so many things, mourning what I thought I knew, mourning authority, mourning reality. Because when you come to terms with something like that, it shakes you down to your root. And that's why awakenings are so intense, because they bring us into our roots. They shake us down to our very foundations. And our ego is what keeps us intact. It keeps us functioning on the physical plane. It keeps us alive, quite literally. But it also keeps us contained. It keeps us, or gives us, some semblance of structure as far as how we think, what we believe, and how we move through life. The goal is to not eradicate the ego. The goal is to befriend it and to create enough conditions, the right conditions in our life, so that when we get shaken, it doesn't dissolve our safety. So building systems within our nervous system, building the right conditions, and creating enough internal safety and enough of a deep anchor outside of external authority, external safety, so that when these waves come, we don't feel like we're being completely taken out. Our ego might, but our sense of safety will not. And these waves that keep coming are really important because what has been happening over the course of the last month has always been there. This darkness has always been there. For centuries, these same acts have been occurring. For decades, these specific acts have been occurring. And it makes sense that when something would come to light like this, we immediately want to respond and react and do something about it because it's so heinous and it's so dark and it's so difficult to reconcile. But we have to return to the fact that this has been happening for decades. And so how do we respond from an organized, rooted, anchored, resourced, and regulated space rather than splitting off further, or dividing further, or finger pointing, or projecting our own emotional experiences onto others? Because that actually doesn't get us what we want. And this is the medicine of Saturn and Aries. Saturn shifts into Aries this week on February 13th. It's asking for us to mature with the part of ourselves that wants to react or rush to conclusions or charge into battle. Saturn slows things down. It gives us a chance to do something differently, to mature through something. So the work right now is, how do we deal with all of this heat, all of this pressure, all of this anger, all of this shock in our systems? This sympathetic energy wants to mobilize something. What do we do with that? And what happens when we discharge that and we find our response from a deeper part of ourselves, a more mature, a more evolved, a more resourced part of who we are? This does not mean we should be bypassing these realizations. We can act right away. We can respond right away. We can start to make changes in our lives. We can choose who we do and don't listen to, engage with, follow. But are you doing it from a space of resourcing or reaction? I think that this is why we have waves, because for the people that found out about this darkness in 2018, 2020, 2021, whatever it was, there's a level of grounded and rootedness around it that now wants to be anchored in the field, so that for people who are just finding out about it, they can be in their feelings and their emotions. They can move through the same awakening that others did before. That's why not everyone needs to respond in the same way. And it's so important that we understand that, because unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of lack of nuance in these conversations, and that will get us nowhere. There's no common ground or consensus reality when that happens. Binary ways of moving through this, these polarizing ways, are really destroying the fabric of humanity. So the work is to, as always, as it always has been, is to be with the feeling, be with the emotion. What does it want to do? What does it want to say? Do you have a practice around that allows you to express and emote? Do you have a practitioner that you work with who can hold space for you? Do you have friends or family that can hold your emotions with you? This energy is not going to slow down. February is an ignition point. We're moving into the Great Conjunction between Neptune and Saturn on February 20th. We're in eclipse season. Things are moving quickly, but it's important to remember that everything is happening in the way it's meant to. We are in a collective ego death, and the darkness wants to be integrated, just like our own shadow work and integration work. We also have to integrate the darkness and the shadow of the collective consciousness by looking at it and seeing it and not bypassing or turning away, but titrating that space. You might need really good boundaries around your phone, around media, around consumption of anything right now, because awakening should be titrated. We should be able to say no at a certain point. We should be able to know and notice our thresholds and to attune to our capacity. We're not meant to do it all at once or digest it all at once. February and this larger threshold we're entering is not asking us to solve all of the world's issues. It's asking us to stay coherent while it reorganizes, to tend our nervous systems, to return to the basics, to focus on what nourishes, what brings sustenance and support so that we can move and action and mobilize from a space of truth and power and integrity, not the wound. This is a time to stay in right relationship with reality rather than narrating it into certainty, to remain human while consciousness stretches beyond its familiar forms, the places we've been before. This is a stretchy time, and you don't need to do it all. You don't need to fix all the world's problems. You don't even have to know or understand what's happening right now. All you have to do is stay present with what is and what's wanting to move through you, what's wanting to metabolize. If you feel like you have capacity to organize, to mobilize, to respond, beautiful. But if you feel like you've been bulldozed, or if you feel like you're spiraling, or if you feel like you're so addicted to your phone or to the news that you can't peel yourself away, it's perhaps a time to pause and reflect on whether or not it's a time to mobilize. Saturn is already doing its work in Aries. It's already forcing us to titrate, to perhaps move slower, to move from a space of pacing and right timing and maturation and integrity. It's also important to note that not everyone is on the same journey. Not everyone is on the same life timeline. Some people are in a young life and they're just living. They're having fun. They're accumulating karma. It's an ignorance is bliss lifetime. Other people are on a journey of what you would call maybe an older soul. And unlike a younger soul, this is the lifetime where they remediate and reconcile the karma. So if you're an old soul, if you can feel that and you just know that I think the majority of people who listen to this podcast are, then you're in a life of reckoning with karma, remediating it, digesting it, meeting and confronting it. It can feel like a harder lifetime. If you've looked around and said, why is it so much harder for me? Or why do I have to go through this? Or why does it feel so intense? You're likely an older soul. It can feel harder, more gritty and confronting. You're processing karma. You're going to be going through major waves of awakening throughout your life. And so you've been a young soul before. You've had that time to just be in ignorance is bliss. You've been there. You've accumulated the karma. Now, as an old soul, there is a responsibility to dissolve victimhood, to meet the awakenings, to use this higher wisdom and this higher knowledge of all of the lived experiences you've had before, even if you aren't conscious of them. That wisdom is there. You have a ripeness that young souls don't have. And we need you to use that wisdom as you meet these edges, as you meet this awakening period, as you're moving through this evolutionary path. So we don't need everyone to fall in line in order to do our soul work, in order to serve in the ways we want to. We need to do our own work so that we can build systems and serve in ways that really feel in true alignment with our higher self and our heart. This is a gritty time. This is not easy. And you have the roadmap. You know we've been training for this. The South Node in Virgo helped us so much last year, really distill and boil and cook things down to what's really needed to feel good and resourced during these times, these turbulent times. What are those things for you? That's why I've been calling on this for years now, just like really, really get to know your toolbox, what works and what doesn't, what feels good. And I'm not saying things will always feel the same way. We might need different tools and resources in different periods of time. But if you have a toolbox, you can kind of select modalities and rituals and practices from this toolbox that really serve you. This is also why I created my group cohort, which I haven't even announced it yet, but I will here, is launching on Friday, February 13th. Friday the 13th. The doors open, and I am so excited. There will be an early bird special for those who are on the wait list. So if you want to be on the wait list, if you want the first opportunity to claim your seat, claim your spot, I will link that in the show notes. I am so excited about this. This is a container I created to help us move through this wild threshold. It's a year-long group cohort, so we meet twice a month together as a group. There's a group portal where we can all communicate together. I'm also offering some seasonal additional workshops and ceremonies for the eclipses and equinoxes and solstices. And I'm so excited. I can feel the field of this group already, and it's so strong and so powerful. I know that when women gather in group, manifestation amplifies, healing amplifies. There's beautiful coherence that can exist. And so I've created this container, this vehicle for transformation and growth that can hold us through this threshold from 2026 through 2027. So I'm incredibly excited about this. It's been a very long time coming. If you'd like to join, I highly recommend getting on the wait list because that will be first come, first serve seats, as well as the early bird special. We begin on April 3rd. So very, very excited about this and would love to have some of you in that container with me and a group of amazing women. And moving into the energy of this week. So it's a big one. We have Neptune that shifted into Aries on January 26th. Saturn is preparing for its shift on February 13th. This week is about orientation. We can just feel that we're standing at the edge of a new cycle that will really define the next several years. Next week, we have our first eclipse of the year. On February 17th, we have the great conjunction between Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. Saturn moving into Aries on February 13th is beginning that conjunction. And both Neptune and Saturn have been dancing together for the last year and a half. So this is not new, but this conjunction at the 0 point of Aries, exactly 0 degrees 44, is significant. We are opening into an era of embodied responsibility. We are activating the creator self, dissolving illusion, dissolving dissociation, melting freeze, and moving into this conscious warrior space of being able to alchemize emotions in real time and respond from the heart, not the wound. This week, on February 8th, we have Venus in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. That same day, Venus enters Pisces. And then, like I said, on the 13th, Saturn enters Aries. And Venus has been in Aquarius. She's been part of this big stellium. We had Mercury enter Pisces. Now Venus is entering Pisces, but not before she squares Uranus. And Uranus is in its last phase of its journey through Taurus. It shifts into Gemini in April. Uranus shifted direct last week in Taurus, and it really has been bringing us into the root, into safety, security, into what we can anchor. And it's so interesting because we had a pretty big financial reworking that happened last week when Uranus shifted direct. Now with Venus squaring, it's going to bring us into what this means for relationships, for values, for pleasure and connection. You might feel tension around your relationships. You might feel tension around money or security, or you might feel this desire to really root or anchor into something, especially a belief or a value. You might feel this desire to shake something up or to liberate yourself from something. Uranus can be destabilizing. You might notice that your relationships are asking for more freedom, more honesty, more authenticity. It might come to light which relationships or connections feel out of integrity. Something might come to light around your relationships that you didn't expect. It can feel quite rigid, Venus in Aquarius, or even cold or distant. So when Venus shifts into Pisces, it's going to feel like a major heart opening, especially if you've had some sort of combustion or destabilization that's happened with Venus squaring Uranus. Venus in Pisces dissolves these boundaries or rigid emotional defenses. And it really wants the heart to open. It wants things to soften. So this might feel nice, especially with what's happening in the world and how walled off we've probably felt in a lot of ways. So many of us have been dropping into our old defense mechanisms and perhaps even closing off our hearts. I mean, that's one of the things with Aquarius is that it can wall off, it can become cold quite easily, or quite quickly, I should say. Pisces is the opposite. Pisces struggles with boundaries. I would say Aquarians are pretty good with boundaries. Piscean people struggle often. Not all, but it's usually sort of embedded or downloaded into their soul curriculum in this lifetime. Boundary work. And that's the nature of Pisces, is that it dissolves boundaries. So you might feel a heart opening or a softening this week, and it might be really good for all of us. And because we've been doing so much work in Pisces over the last few years, I'm hoping that this feels good, like a beautiful dissolving, like a softening rather than dissociation or collapse. And then Saturn shifts into Aries on February 13th. And it's moving from the 12th sign of the zodiac, Pisces, into the first sign of the zodiac, Aries. It's crossing that creator point, that threshold. Saturn represents maturation, mastery, devotion, structure, form, boundaries, authority. It is the physical plane. It's lead, it's heavy and dense, and it really represents form and how we create structures on this physical plane that help us, quite frankly, stay alive, that help us mature, that help us materialize life. Saturn helps us to evolve and mature through lived experience, through challenge, conflict, friction. Aries represents the emergence of self. It's the soul's instinct to become, to separate from the past and forge something new. Aries is fast moving. It's responsive. It's reactive. It is initiation, change, fire, heat. It wants to do. It wants to respond. Saturn wants to titrate and wait for the right moment. So Saturn is moving into Aries and up-leveling this area of our life, this area of our charts. It's up-leveling and upgrading and maturing an aspect of us, the Aries aspect. It's saying, yes, begin. But begin in right relationship with your power, your body, your boundaries, your heart. I think it's going to reveal where we act from, where we initiate from, and have us really alchemize that space, our will, our desire, our power. Saturn and Aries are a push and pull. Saturn is technically in its fall here because it doesn't have the infrastructure in place yet. Aries is the baby of the zodiac. It's the first sign, so it lacks containment and boundaries and structure. That's why if you know Aries people, they might often say things that are kind of off the wall or confronting or abrupt or even offensive. God love them. They're just responding from pure life force. Of course, this isn't all Aries people, and it matters so much more what the other placements of your chart are, but it's kind of a funny shadow aspect of Aries people. If you've met someone who's very Saturnian, they feel much different. They might feel more reserved or more quiet or even more contained, rigid even. So these two energies are very different. Saturn wants to slow things down, to be sure, to move from a place of maturity and awareness. Aries wants to move, react, go. It can be impulsive in its shadow. So this energy is a perfect breeding ground for embodied leadership. And I don't mean just leadership as far as like leading a group or a movement or a team or in your own work life or social life. I mean more the installation of an embodied leader archetype within each and every one of us. A strong, resilient, confident, adult, higher self that can lead us in life. We are in the era of the fall of idols. We need to sharpen our own discernment, our own inner leader. We're moving from a time of hierarchy to self-leadership, self-responsibility, community leadership, co-responsibility. Saturn in Aries is going to help us get there, but we have to be able to confront the parts of us that would rather blow through and plow through and react and respond from the wounding instead. It's so much more difficult to sit with the discomfort of not responding or of waiting or choosing the right moment, especially when there's a mobilizing energy moving through your body or there's something you want to say. Saturn's going to ask us to wait, even for just 1 second, a sacred pause. Is there a new pathway that's emerging? This is about disciplined action, patience, precision. It's going to teach us how to slow down impulsivity and really refine our impulses, our desires, intention, create consistency and sustainability in how we move through life. It's also going to open up new ways to create structures that really support freedom, becoming the authority of our own lives rather than seeking that externally. It's also going to encourage self-responsibility, dissolving victim consciousness, even savior consciousness, showing us that we can lead our lives with full ownership over our reality and what we create through our choices. When we take responsibility for these things, we become empowered and sovereign. And this is exactly what this portal could teach us if we open to it. Dissolving victim consciousness is a very tricky one though, so we're going to have to become very real with the parts of us that would rather just stay in the wound because it's comfy and familiar. I don't know about you, but I literally can catch myself in real time when I'm resisting the growth edge, when I can feel so much more comfortable staying in my wound because it's so familiar. The growth edge won't feel familiar at first. That maturational pathway that Saturn's opening up will not feel easy at first. But the more you choose that pathway, the more trodden it becomes and the more easy it is to choose. It's neuroplasticity. And as we know, when we have growth edges, all of the fears come up or all of the shadow comes up. So there's going to be shadow to integrate with this transit. Impatience, burnout, reactivity, defensiveness, victim consciousness, avoidance of responsibility for our own choices. This transit is from 2026 to 2028. We had a taste of it last summer, May through September. Saturn was in Aries until it retrograded back into Pisces. But it's going to be here until 2028. And this point really marks the maturation of will. This is the activation of the creator self. I am telling you, from this point forward, we will begin materializing our reality more quickly. There will be less space between what we think and what happens. And you can probably already feel that the veil is incredibly thin. You might think something and then it happens, or it might be so clear where you are creating your reality from. This is going to speed up. And I think a lot of it has to do with this activation of Aries energy in the sky, but this is how we build a new world. It becomes rapid and fast. But we have to really, really get clear where we are creating from. What beliefs, what's held within our subconscious. We've been doing so much work on this over the last few years. And that work never ends, but it's important to just notice, where are you operating from? Fear, anger, resentment, or the heart? We're going to be asked to slow our instinct to rush, to forge ahead, to react, and instead build something that can endure, or choose, like I said, that new pathway of the higher heart. True sovereignty is not freedom from responsibility. It's responsibility chosen consciously. This is the era of Saturn and Aries. It's a bit of a pressure cooker, but we have Neptune already there, so there's going to be some balancing, and I'll talk more about that next week because we have the conjunction happening next. And I do believe that we build a new reality from our beliefs. We know this. Our beliefs quite literally weave the fabric of our lives. So if we can change that space, if we can go in and start to rewire and build in hope and freedom and love and beauty, that is what will be created. So don't ignore the anger, the rage, the fear, the grief. All of it is so sacred. Just follow it and see where it leads you. There's something here that probably wants your attention, but don't expect everyone to fall into line with what you're feeling. It's just not realistic. It's also not supportive, and it's the old way of doing things. I am hopeful because although this awakening period is rough, it's brutal, it's sad, it's scary, it's ugly, it's also so needed in order for us to really awaken to not only what has been, but what could be. We need to build this new world fully awake and sober. And Saturn in Aries is going to sober us right up. So is Neptune in Aries. So you've got this. You have your tools. If you want to join me for my cohort, we'll be walking through all of the medicine of how to do this moving into 2026 and 2027. It is truly all about sovereignty, embodied leadership, self-responsibility, self-compassion, self-love, self-worth, and holding a container for your own evolution and transformation to unfold, because it's not the same as everyone else's, nor should it be. Thank you, as always, for being here. I just want to note, because I know I talked about this in the 2026 forecast workshop, but this is the fall of idols. Anyone and everything you pedestal will dissolve or fall or disappoint, because we are not meant to give our power away. And this time will reveal to us where we have given our power away to something else, to an entity, to a political figure, to a guru or a teacher or a celebrity. Saturn in Aries is quite literally forcing us to create and actualize that leader within each one of ourselves, so that we can move from an embodied, confident, empowered place. So please do not pedestal me. I am not the end-all be-all of astrology, of information, of what's happening and unfolding. I am just here to provide reflection and hopefully guide you back to you. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That is the Piscean age. That's the old way, needing to validate your beliefs or pedestal the opinions of others in order to feel safe. We've all been trained to seek validation and truth from someone at the top. But that is not what I'm here for. I'm a seer, an oracle, a guide. I'm here to share what I see, what I channel. But it is you who must take that information and pull it through your own truth channel and discern whether or not it resonates, because that is the most important thing, is that you know what's real and what isn't real for you. I am also a space holder, so I hold space for others to feel, to process, to move with what is, which means I hold many different perspectives and ideas and beliefs. I'm here to hold nuance, I'm here to hold complexity, and that is my role. So I hope that this feels like a space of empowerment for you, not coercion. I will never tell you what to believe. The Aquarian age is about sovereignty, cooperative systems, new ways of governing. It's easy to fall back into old patterns when chaos ensues, when we're afraid. We want to look to someone to tell us what's real and what isn't. But that will no longer be available anymore. And it's important that we all find our own truth channel and really anchor into it. And that doesn't mean teachers and guides won't exist, because we need them, quite frankly. But if you don't feel guided back to your own wisdom, your innate wisdom, by the teachers that you're following or the seers or the channels, then that might be something to reflect on. As always, thank you for being here. The card I pulled today is the Eagle card, and it's all about perspective. It says, Eagle's domain is in the heights. He transcends the laws of velocity with his certainty, a performance unorthodox to the five senses. With the sky's blessing, his prideful raptor's glide allows him to see it all. From mountain tops to woodlands, he takes in his sovereign and privileged view, informed by instinct and guided by inner substance. He is restricted by nothing. His flight is extravagant because he claims his divinity with the sobriety of a saint. He is unfettered by pettiness or preference. He mates, nests, and hunts with the confidence of a clairvoyant, trusting that he has found his place in the universe. Eagle asks that you hold the high watch. The sublime comes to you disguised as your life. This is the vantage point of the eagle. For him, duality-based preferences have no relevance, and there is only source energy in full expression. Any initiation, boon, or boredom is a gift to your soul's evolution and growth. In this way, each trial and victory are the same thing. There is nothing in the world that can delay you from fulfilling your soul's primary purpose when you hold his aerial perspective. When it's balanced, you have the ability to love all one's life without the interference of preference. When it's imbalanced, you feel aversive and petty. To bring into balance, spend an entire day suspending all opinions. And eagle medicine is so powerful. Thank you for being here, as always. Thank you for sharing on social media. Thank you for sharing with friends and family, anyone who you think would appreciate this episode. I'm so grateful to walk with each and every one of you. Whether or not I know you personally or whether or not you engage with the work outside of this podcast, I'm just grateful to connect with you. So thank you for being here. And if you want to support Soul Archaeology, the production, I do it all on my own. And if you want to support it, you can join my Substack. It is $8 a month. I do deeper dives there. I actually just did a post on how to navigate these times and tools and resources to stay rooted. So $8 a month. You can find the Substack link in my show notes. You can also just donate to the podcast if you want. You can find that. It's also linked in the show notes. It's on my Squarespace. I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a beautiful week.